podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome along to the first episode of Mutchy and Denno for 2026. Andy Mutch and Robbie Dennison are alongside me. Did you have a good Christmas and New Year? We'll start with you, Robbie.
Yeah, that was great, Johnny. It's just with the family. Obviously most of the family are back out in Northern Ireland and stuff, so we don't get to see them. But had the kids in the house, me and Denise. So we had a reasonably quiet one, but it was I worked quite a bit over Christmas as well, Johnny. So don't get much time off. So had a few beers here and there, you know what I mean. So yeah, it was nice and relaxed and enjoyable.
Does the Christmas post put extra weight on your bag?
Absolutely horrendous, Johnny. And I bet you go online all the time and order stuff as well, Johnny. You're the type, aren't you? But it's no, honestly, it's such a busy time, but I actually don't mind it because the time flies by really. But you just know that for about 4 or 5 weeks of the year, December time, you're going to get absolutely battered with it. But it's all part of the job. You just accept it for 4 or 5 weeks and get on with it.
So tell me that the Royal Mail at least pay per kilo that you're lugging around the streets.
No, I won't even tell you that, Johnny. But all I would say is you get plenty of overtime. Any overtime you want, you can basically work to 8 o'clock at night if you want to. But I don't work in the dark. You know what I mean? That's one thing I don't do. But you've got plenty of young kids who want to work and do all the hours and all like. But there's such a lot of work on that you basically work for as long as you want, you know. And I just get on and do what I have to do, like I used to do in the football, you know.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Mutchy, how was your Christmas and New Year?
Oh, great. Always good, isn't it? With all the family, you know. Just before Christmas, we had the grandkids for 3 days and that was pandemonium. We needed a rest after that, but then obviously everybody else comes. So the house is not big enough really for everyone, but we had a great time. The usual things, playing games of cards, having a few drinks, watching films, all that type of stuff that you do. But it was certainly great, but I don't want to be a mood over, but I can't wait for it to finish. When the new year comes, I go, thank God for that, because I just want to get back to normality, you know what I mean? But we did have a great time, you know, and as we do every year, my sister came over from France and she brings the dogs, so we walk the dogs and all that stuff. So we do all the usual things that I suppose everybody does, unless you're committed to your work. Luckily, I haven't done any work but over Christmas, but obviously I'm back now and I'm snowed under and that's how it is. But I suppose yourself and Robbie, but you're working every other day, aren't you? Robbie's working nearly every day, you know, and that's just part of life now, is it? You know, there's no Sundays anymore, is there? You know, where there's no shops open and no one goes to work. So, but it was really great. I really enjoyed it. It's great to see everybody because obviously, as we know, we always don't see people as much as we'd like to, your family, etc., because we're all committed to do things and that's how it rolls. But, you know, really good time, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it was busy here as well. Although for the first time in 20 odd years, I got Boxing Day off because they moved all the Premier League fixtures apart from one to the 27th. And I saw your boys, Mutchy, at the weekend, Liverpool.
Oh, yeah.
That was quite an exciting finish to that game against Fulham.
What a goal by that lad. Reid was his name.
Harrison Reid.
What a goal that was. I mean, even I was absolutely... Well, I'm not saying it was made up for him, but I thought, what a goal that is. You could never take that away from anyone. It was brilliant. But, you know, in reality, I think Fulham are quite a decent side and they're a little bit better than people give them credit for at times. I think they've got an excellent manager and they've got a lot of very good players. They put up a great fist at Fulham, and Liverpool, in truth, have been very poor this season. You know, they can dominate possession for long periods because they have got good players, but the balance of the team is not very good, and Slot's got a bit to do, you know.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Fulham having a good manager because Marco Silva, I think, is probably, in my opinion, humble opinion at least anyway, is one of the most underrated managers out there in the Premier League. I think he's absolutely brilliant at building sides. He always seems to cope with having to move players on. They had to sell João Paulinho not long ago, and he's managed to evolve the side further. I think he's absolutely brilliant. If Wolves, every time Wolves change manager, I always think I'd love us to go in for Marco Silva, but it never seems to happen. But Denno, let's not talk about changing manager because Wolves have been a bit more positive to chat about and to have a look at over the Christmas period. What do you make of it all?
Are you talking about the win, Johnny? The one win we've had so far, yeah.
And a point as well, somewhere else.
But Johnny, even before Christmas time, there was a bit of an uplift on performances, especially the way performance We're speaking about the Arsenal one, the Liverpool one. Or away from home, they were half decent, you know what I mean? And we're lucky not to pick up a few more points. But it's always when you're in a run like that, with not winning the amount of 17, 18 games we hadn't won, you're always your home fixtures are tough, Johnny. You know what I mean? Because you come in front of your home fans and you haven't won for a long, long time. And Mutchy tell you, whenever we lost 2 or 3 at home, the next third game, fourth game, or whatever, you were desperate to win games of football. And there was a lot of pressure on you. And I can't put your mind around the fact that the lads hadn't won, I think it was about 10, 12 at home in the league. So that the pressure of that and coming playing at home is obviously going to affect your performances. So last Saturday was a fantastic, result with regards to getting the win. Will hopefully give you a lot of confidence moving forward, but they've still got so much work to do. And but the signs are a little bit more positive with things that have happened with the young lad coming in, Mane coming in. A bit more positive with regards to how they're setting up and defending, working hard for each other. So signs are more positive, but still they've got a hell of a lot of work to do.
Yeah, what do you think, Mutchy? Would you go along with that?
I'd say a bit more in the respect that I think what Rob Edwards has done over his short tenure has been absolutely superb because I thought he was crazy taking the job. I really did. You have to be honest. But watching the performances, the real worry is when they go away to Arsenal and lose 2-1 after equalising near the end, right? They've put their heart and soul into that game. And it was nice to see because we've seen quite a few games where they haven't put their heart and soul into it. But since Rob Edwards taken over, there's a bit more organisation, there's a bit more commitment, there's a bit more togetherness. And when you lose at Arsenal after putting that much commitment in, it's very hard to go again because you get that downer on you again because you've lost again type situation. But they've had a great performance against Liverpool. Obviously, they were tremendous against West Ham. They've been very, very close to win a game of football. Now, it's only one game, but there's been a lot of doom and gloom at the club for 4 or 5, 6 months, and before that, of how the club are being run, and obviously the executive chairman, she left, and all this type of stuff. So there's been a lot of doom and gloom, and every time I've seen Wolves of late, I'm very, very encouraged. Doesn't mean they're going to escape relegation, but it will set the foundations for what they're about, what their identity is, and what they're trying to achieve. Because some of the performance by the players were absolutely shocking up until, say, Rob came in, and obviously he has to find his feet very quickly, and that's very, very tough because you've got a lot of lads who are down on themselves. But he's got them going, and you've got to give him every credit. Yeah, we have to understand West Ham are very poor at the moment, and it was a great time to play them. But I thought we'd beat Brentford, and that didn't quite come off. But I remember playing for Swindon, and in the end of October, we hadn't won a league game in the Premier League, and we beat QPR 3-1 at home. And that changing room was the most unbelievable changing room I've been in for a one-off situation, where it was like the relief and the party were laughing and joking and all the stuff that was going on. And I was thinking, I bet the change room is going to be like that because they'll show a bit of compassion, and then when they go in the changing rooms, they'll be absolutely delighted. And a few lads have done well. Mane has been a real tonic for the team because he's a young lad, fearless. He's got ability, and it's something you can hang your hat on. Whereas at one stage, I'm honest, I'm looking at Gomez and Andre thinking, well, they're good footballers, but they're not getting us out of bed, if truth be known. Now, people like Mane and a few others, Arias has started to produce a bit. That'll sort of kick on the lads like the Gomez and the Andres, who are good players, but they say, well, I've got a few lads around me now, so who look like there's something. So I think we'll be doing all right now from now till the end of the season. We're certainly not going to stay up in my eyes. And we'll certainly win games, though, from now to the end of the season. But at least we can see some shoots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well said indeed. We'll come on to Matthias Mane in a minute. We'll get Robbie's thoughts on that. As Robbie, the mercurial gifted one on this podcast, he can have a chat about Mane. But I think going back to what you said about Rob Edwards, it is encouraging to see that he's managed to make Wolves competitive, because I think quite a lot of the fan base remain to be convinced about him to some degree. I rate him. I think he's a very good manager. He's come into a near impossible situation. But I think after that Brentford defeat, certainly those who were perhaps a bit sceptical of him, they had a bit more fuel to their fire to say this just isn't happening. But how competitive they were against Liverpool and Manchester United up in the northwest, and then the way they put West Ham away, Robbie, it makes you think. And Rob alluded to this himself in his post match at the weekend. He said it's almost like we've had the equivalent time of a pre-season now. It did make, I think, even the skeptics sort of sit up and think, well, hang on a minute, this is okay. Wolves are at least being competitive now.
Well, I think the fans have to see something that they're actually working towards, Johnny. You know what I mean? And I think they're starting to see that a little bit now. And much you touched on quite a few things there. But it's ultimately down to results, isn't it? You can say, oh, that was a decent performance against Villa. You know, they should have got something out of the game. That was a decent performance against Arsenal. Should have got something out of the game. But you can only say that for so long, Johnny. You know what I mean? You have to, at some point, get a win and give everybody that extra little bit of belief that you're actually moving forward with the scenario and you're getting them organised. But what I have been impressed with him, and even though results haven't been great, there's still he has real energy about him, right? Even when whenever they lose games, he's obviously devastated that he lose games, but you feel as if he's taking them into the next game and still giving them that belief that the next game be the one they're going to win games, start winning games of football, and hopefully that's going to be the way it is. But fans look at results. A lot of the times it's just results with fans, and that is the way football is a lot of times. So to get the results, to get that result on Saturday was a massive thing to give everybody a little bit of belief. But he does seem to have the players behind him. He's got a few people in the club now as well that he's wanted in, and they're all working with him as well, and hopefully moving things and getting things organised. But there's definitely been a massive improvement, Johnny, from the time he moved in. It was a couple of months maybe now, to now. There's definitely been a good improvement. Hopefully results over the next month or so will back that up.
Muchy, how important do you think the arrival of Rui Pedro Silva has been? He came along actually at Jeff Shee's sort of request in a way, which is perhaps a parting gift from Jeff, who was certainly possibly the most divisive figure at Molineux in a very, very long time, and was certainly at the root of a lot of problems at Wolves. But it'd be ironic if he's left, or leaving such a positive impression behind on that last decision he made. But what he did was he gave a call to Rui Pedro Silva, and obviously he wouldn't have come had it not been with Rob Edwards' blessing. And Rui met Rob Edwards at the training ground. He met him again after the defeat against Manchester United at home, and then it was agreed that he should become part of the coaching staff alongside Harry Watling and Paul Trollope as well. And he's brought a huge amount of experience in. He's the work he's done at Wolves in the past, the work he did at Nottingham Forest with Nuno Espirito Santo, and the work he's done in Europe. He's an elite, top-class coach. Do you think that has made a big difference to Rob Edwards and certainly the way the team's setting up?
I'd say, Johnny, what a great phone call that was. Liked or disliked, the club themselves know what the fella's all about. They know what ability he's got, and they think he could help Rob. And Rob's smart enough to listen, like what he is, and he's got him alongside him now. And as you say, he's been successful with Nuno on a few occasions. It's like this, if someone said to me, is Rob Edwards a good manager? I'd say I haven't got a clue, if I'm being really honest, right? The proof is in the pudding, innit? And you have like two managers sat today of the biggest clubs, Celtic and Manchester United, and I'm listening to every pundit, right? And none of them really knows who they think should manage Manchester United next. So good luck with that one for the employers, who they're going to get. You understand what I mean? You've got to have a belief in someone. You've got to think he's the credible guy that can come and do it. You've got to support him, like the club have supported Robin bringing Silva in. And you say, well, it's only going to be for a benefit because it's best who you know. It's like people are moaning about Nancy not winning games at Celtic, and then someone turns around and says, well, give him a bit of time. I said, well, Martin O'Neill came in and won 8 games on the run. Who you know is better than what you don't know. And I think it was quite a wise move, and they obviously know Rob from his time at Wolves anyway, and he's done reasonably well for a bit. Then he's had a bit of a dip. Then he's started to do well again at Middlesbrough, and it looks like his home is here. So let's hope he gets the support he needs and move on with it.
To carry on with that about the management situation, obviously a cynic could look at Jeff Shee and said, well, he rang Gary O'Neill up and tried to get him back. In the end, he's just going through his contacts book until he hits lucky with one. But Rui Pedro Silva has come here as well. And that point you made, Mutchy, about what we've seen with, and that's a really good point, about when a manager leaves a club and no one really knows what to do next and no one knows who you bring in, and certainly Celtic and Manchester United are looking like very, very unstable clubs right at the minute. Do you think there's an element of stability coming back to Wolves, at least at management level, Robbie, when you've got Rob Edwards has finally got a win under his belt. He's already had the experience of Paul Trollope, a well-respected coach in the lower divisions, and Harry Watley, who's a younger fella. And then Rui comes in as well, a known and respected figure, not just in the UK, not just at Wolves, but within Europe as well. Do you feel perhaps there are signs of stability returning to Wolves after such a chaotic and toxic environment?
Johnny, there definitely seems to be. And the point I was going to make about Silva was, I think it's important that whenever coaches or whatever walks in the change rooms, and footballers are funny people nowadays, Johnny, you know what I mean? They have to see where the club's heading to. They have to see the management team coming in, and they have to respect who's coming through the door as well. In their own eyes, I'm talking about in their own eyes, really. And if you don't, whenever they've probably seen Silva coming in, there's an automatic respect there because of what he's done in the game so far, right? So I think the appointment of Silva is first class, really. First class. Rob Edwards was always going to bring his own people in with Trollope and the other lad. So he was always going to bring those people in. But to get someone with experience of Silva was as he said, it was a very good phone call that Jeff Shee's made, But it's all, as I said before, John, it's all about getting results now, isn't it? Getting results, moving things forward, the stability on the coaching side, management side, hopefully as well. Performances seems to have picked up, so there's a definite more positive atmosphere around the club now because it was horrible for a while. Whenever the fans were singing about the players not fit to wear the shirt and all that sort of stuff, which is only 6, 7 weeks ago, maybe now, it was a horrible place to go and watch football, so that all seems to have died down a little bit with regards to the owners as well. So hopefully results change that as it always does. So hopefully we can move forward with a little bit more positivity now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Robbie, there totally. And obviously the supporters have seen the poor performances from August right through till early December, say, and it's very, very disappointing. There's only one because we've got a lot of tough teams to play very shortly. Like every game in the Premier League is tough. So to win a succession of games is very, very difficult, right? Even for teams who are up there, never mind down at the bottom of the league, right? So I think the fate is there, right? But it's what the club actually do to organise. So, like you said, Rob, they've got an identity. People know. When we played, Robbie, we ran through brick walls. That's why people liked us. Simple as that. We didn't turn up and shirk our responsibility as players. We got stuck in and worked as hard as we could. And if the ability wasn't there on the day or we made mistakes, it can be accepted. Don't get me wrong. When we lost 2 or 3 games at home, like you said, Rob, they weren't happy, were they? Right? And you missed controlling the ball. But that's the nature of football, isn't it? But I just more encouraged of the way the team is actually approaching the games. However, whatever results they get, doesn't matter to me now because there's a bit of a tough time over the next few months and championship football's on the way, unfortunately. However, if that doesn't happen, I'll be absolutely as delighted as everybody. But realistically, they've just got to get a bit of strength back into the club and a bit of identity and meaning because when they go in the championship, I think I've said this before, you got all these big name clubs, right, are all trying to get back in the Premier League, right? And they're all stumbling over their own feet, the Leicester Cities, all them type of clubs, that won the Premier League and not as long as 5, 6 years ago, whenever it was, So it's going to be very tough for Wolves to get back in. So they've got to start now with their organisation. That's the real truth.
We touched on it earlier, Robbie, but Matheus Mane has clearly captured the imagination of so many of the spectators and so many of the supporters with what he's produced so far. He's only 18 years old. He's actually born in Portugal, but came over to England at a young age, ended up in Rochdale's youth academy, and then moved on to Wolves as well. And has seemed to have been given his chance under Rob Edwards, which is another string to Rob Edwards' bow, really, that he's putting his trust in Mane. And it just looks like he's playing with no fear and given so much sort of oomph to the team, for want of a better word.
Well, I think what you wanted from the team, Johnny, whenever the things weren't going well, was someone to be positive, wasn't it? Someone to be positive, take responsibility, especially going forward, because there's basically nothing going forward in those months of the season, first 3 or 4 months of the season. And what you've got with the young lad is someone who comes in. He's not scarred by what has gone on before, really, is he? You know what I mean? So he's coming in. There's a freshness to him, and anytime he's got on the ball and stuff, he wants to look forward. He looks forward. He wants to do things. He takes people on. He passes the ball forward well as well. But to look at him and see that he's only 18 years of age, we've seen different players come through over the years, Johnny. You know, young lads, 18, 19. Morgan Gibbs White was one of them, who's turned out to be a really good player. This lad looks to be as good as any of them. There's a freshness to him, positivity to him, but also fantastic ability on the ball. And he looks as if he's just taking it all in his stride. He's enjoying it. And that definitely rubs off on other people, Johnny. You know, that positivity rubs off on other people, and that's what he's brought to the side. I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been involved more from the start of the season, really, when you look at what he's offering now. Sometimes you just stumble on these things a little bit. Rob Edwards has put him in and given him a chance, and he's proven his worth at the minute, and he's been a big factor in where Wolves have got to over his last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, what would you say, Mutchy, from what you've seen of him so far?
There's a difference. Some lads are 18 and they're not very strong. They've got ability, but they can't handle the environment. But he's a very strong boy. He's got confidence. What's happened? Rob Edwards has just gone, well, can't be any worse. I see some ability in him. He's got a strength. Let's get him out there and see if he can give the team a bit of a lift with a different dimension. And that's exactly what's happened, which is great. And let's hope that he can keep that going, because all players that start performing, they always have a lull, don't they? But the fact he's 18 is good, because, as Robbie said, he'll be absolute fearless, and he'll be chomping at the bit for the next game, and then the next game, and that's how it rolls. So I think it's been a great uplift to the club that he's been producing what he's produced, which, as Robbie said, it encourages the players to believe, because when you used to go out in the tunnel, you used to look at your own team and go, we're at it today. We've got Denno playing bully, Floyd Street and all that, and it gives you that lift, you know what I mean? Whereas now they'll be going out the tunnel thinking, well, we've got Mane who can do a bit for us and blah, blah, blah. And so for that reason, I think it's been a great lift for the club.
Also, I also would say, on top of that, there's probably going to be a few outgoings in this January window as well. There are players that want out. Wolves may decide to cash in on Joao Gomez. They may decide to cash in on Andre Strand Larsen, without knowing what their financial projections are and what they want to do in terms of recouping cash. I think they're the three. All three of those could be exposed to leaving the club. And so it's really important that supporters see that there is something else there, because if you'd have said to fans a month ago, Gomez, Andre, and Strand Larsen could leave, then it's an even worse scenario than the one they were facing. But now all of a sudden, with a couple more points in the bag and the emergence of Mane, and as you touched on earlier, John Arias may start to come good, then at least it gives supporters something to cling on to. Would you say, Robbie, that Matheus Mane's emergence is as important because of the future of other players?
Of course it is, Johnny. But for me, he's an addition to what they have now, a big addition to what they have now. I'll be very disappointed if the players you've just named leave in January. And I know where Wolves are at the moment in the bottom of the league, and yes, it'll take a bit of a miracle to get them out and have them staying in the league. But I wouldn't want anybody jumping ship now, Johnny, with regards to leaving the club, because you really are, putting the last nail in the coffin. Really is, if you're looking at three players I don't know, Andre Gomez, Joe Gomez, and Larson. You know, if they go, then your squad's so small, then, isn't it? So really, you're finishing the team off. Really, I would like to see two or three players come in to try and strengthen a little bit with what remains. But I wouldn't want to see anybody leaving in January. Those players that you mentioned with Larson and all, they're on long-term contracts, so there's no need to sell them off for whatever in this January. Okay, if the manager turns around and says that one of them, listen, you're not going to play for me at all, that's a different scenario, right? And we've got a certain amount of money, but those three players are still in the manager's plans, I would think. So for me, don't don't sell anybody else off.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't want any of those to go. I think it's really important that none of them go. But I think to be realistic, and also on the information I've had, is that there are players A looking to move, and that B the club are willing to sell. I mean, Matt Doherty alluded to it in one of his post-match interviews a couple of weeks ago. I think it might have been after a defeat at home. It may have been after the Brentford defeat. He sort of tried to rally the rest of the team by saying, do we want to go down as cowards or do we want to go down fighting? And he broke ranks a little bit. He spoke about players talking about moving on, and that's come from the dressing room, and that's pretty, from what I've heard as well, that pretty much confirms that there are players in there who want to go. Now, football changes quickly and things change quickly in football, and the fact that Wolves have now more than double their points tally since Matt Doherty said that, and the fact that there are shoots of recovery elsewhere, it may just make players think, do you know what, this isn't such a bad place after all. It'll certainly help, but I think we've got to be realistic. I don't think this is going to be a transfer window where Wolves strengthen particularly. It's going to be one where they're struggling to hold on to players, or they may choose to sell players if the price is right.
But at the end of the day, Johnny, and Much will tell you exactly the same. The best way for you to get a move, if you're looking for a move, and if your agent, the agents are going to be putting them about, Johnny. That's fact. Whatever the player thinks at this moment in time, the agent will be out there shoving the names around clubs. That happens. That's the modern day things happening. But the best way for the player to actually get a decent move is to show a good attitude for the club that he's at now, and to perform for the club that he's at now, with any of the opportunities that he gets. That's the best way. Keep his mouth closed, get on with things, and if he's good enough, he'll get that move at some point, Johnny. If he's like a Cunha or whatever, they'll get that move at some point. So get your head down, work hard for the club you're at now, and then show what you're about and show good character. Because that's, if I was going to sign someone, that's what I'd be looking for. So hopefully they will knuckle down and get on with it.
What I would say is I just slightly disagree with yourself, Robbie, and Johnny on the Larson situation, right? I think the two boys in midfield are obviously very good footballers, right? And playing in a team that's not playing well, and it hasn't helped them, I don't think. But I would sell Larson immediately for as much money as you could get, and I'd reinvest the money back into the team straight away, because if they can get 50 million for him, I'd be amazed, right? I'd be amazed, because I don't know what he does for the team. I really don't. And I'm not saying that because I'm digging him out. I just look at him and I think, well, is he strong in the air? Not really. Is he mobile? Not really. Is he aggressive? Not really. Can he score a penalty? Yes. And I'm not saying, and I'm just talking about the best interests of the club. Everybody else, as you said, Robbie, you bang on, right? All your good players, all your players, you keep them at the club, and you say, listen, the way you earn your onions is you do well for this team, and then someone else might want you, like Kuna went, because anybody who plays anywhere ends up moving if they're doing well, because someone else will pay more money and give money to the club to reinvest somewhere else. So for me, I would sell Larson immediately, right, for as much money as you can get, right? And I'd bring in, even if I brought a young striker in that could run and had the sort of attitude of, say, Mane, that type, if you know what I mean, mobile, fearless, as opposed, he's an experienced fella. The best game he ever played was 3 days before he was going to go to Newcastle. And then after that, I haven't seen him, if I'm honest. So I'm not digging him out, because, if I was there at the club, I'd speak to him and say, listen, this is what I think you might need to do if you want to improve your game. But however, on purely a note of strengthening the team and the squad, and you can get money for him, allegedly, I'd sell him straight away.
I think what you're saying there, Andy, will absolutely resonate with a large amount of the Wolves support. I think you've just encapsulated what a lot of Wolves supporters think there. And when you say, can he score a penalty? He can't even do that. But judging on the one he missed the other week.
Oh, he scored one.
Um,
One out of two, Mutchy. 1 out of 2, yeah.
1 out of 2 ain't bad, eh?
I'm not going to dig him out. I actually think I like Strand Larsen, and it's not a particularly strong position to be coming from at the moment to try and defend him, because a lot of his performances have been indefensible, and he's ended up on the bench now. You know, he was on the bench in the win over West Ham. I do think there is a player in there, and I think if he'd been nurtured in a more positive and productive environment than the one he's had to play in so far this season, then we'd see a bit more of him. For example, had he gone to Newcastle when the opportunity emerged, I reckon he'd be banging goals in for Newcastle now. They'd play to his strengths, and I think you'd see a different player. I think he's been worn down by what's been going on at Wolves this season. That said, this is not to excuse him. He's a professional footballer, and I think a lot of the points you make there about him not doing the things he should be doing as a footballer who's supposedly got this talent and supposedly got this value, are really important. So I wouldn't defend him in that sense, but I wouldn't want to write Strand Larsen off just yet. But I think I'm in a minority. I think most Wolves fans come from it from where you are, Mutchy, and look at it like that. Listen, just to round off, Denno, where do you see the next? How important do you see the next few weeks being? There's obviously a break for the FA Cup coming up, and then Wolves are back at it with a league match against Newcastle. So let's not look any further ahead than that. What would you like to see from Wolves over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think we've got Everton this week, Johnny, haven't we?
Sorry, you're quite right. I completely forgot about that.
Sorry.
The first one is Everton.
Yeah, I'll keep you, Johnny. I'll keep you
glad
right.
you're paying
I'll keep you right.
attention.
Don't worry, mate. I'll keep you right. Wolves come into it with a bit of confidence. Everton were beat, was it 4-2 at home to Brentford?
Yeah.
So Everton, the fans will be ready to turn on them a little bit there. So I think that's a decent game for Wolves to go into, with a little bit of confidence and hopefully a performance and maybe get something out of that game, Johnny. Also, obviously they've got Shrewsbury in the cup. You want to go through to the next round. When your league form is as it has been for the last 3 or 4 months, and you're struggling with regards to where you are league position, rooted at the bottom of the league, you want to get a decent cup run, and you want to go as far in the cup as you possibly can, keep the interest in that. So the Shrewsbury game is a must win for me. And then I think Mutchy touched on it recently or just before there about the fixtures that are coming up. I think we've got Liverpool soon, we've got Man City soon, we've got Chelsea soon, we've got Newcastle soon. So it's a tough run, but they put in performances against decent sides in recent times. So hopefully there's more of those performances on the way. But Johnny, listen, if you were going to come out of that and say you had out of the next 6 games, you had 3 wins out of those 6 games, you'd be well chuffed, really. So look positive, look in the side of, we've had a decent result, we've had a decent win. Go into the next games with a bit more positivity and confidence, and hopefully they can do that.
If I was the gaffer of Wolves, when we play Shrewsbury, I'd put the strongest team possible out. The only players who wouldn't play is anyone who had a real niggle that you were worried about something might go wrong with them. But I'd put the strongest side out, and I'd go and play. I'd tell them to play that like a cup final and try and play quick, aggressive, score goals as many as they can. You find, I think you know this just as much as me, Robbie, is that when you get on runs and you start winning games or you start doing better, your performances of everyone individually improves, and then collectively that gets better. So the fact it is, with the greatest respect, Shrewsbury were not really, they're struggling a bit anyway in their own league, but it's a great opportunity for Wolves to actually get more of the feel-good factor, because the way us three are talking tonight, we're all far happier because they probably won a game of football and double the points. Yeah, it's like Gary Bellamy, wasn't it? Double, double, double.
But it is much. You're right. The confidence, a little bit of confidence in the win. It breeds more confidence. Energy breeds energy, doesn't it? Really. And I think if you can win. If you did get a decent result against Everton, you go into the Shrewsbury game, you win that. All of a sudden, you maybe haven't lost in 4 games, Mutchy, and that does. And I know doesn't sound much whenever you're still bottom of the league and all that sort of stuff, but it does. It changes the whole atmosphere with regards to players, fans, coaching staff, everybody about the club, Mutchy. So that's what they need to be aiming to do in the next 2 or 3 games for me.
Well, that's it, because the players need to be looking forward to going into training, don't they? As opposed to dreading it because what they're going to say next and what the performance has been. So it's just up in the spirit. And, you know, it's quite ironic, isn't it? Because when new managers take over at any club all over the years, right, they always have an uplift. Wolves didn't particularly have that. He just started to get them organised. And then a few games later, then you started to see the improvement. But most managers, new managers come in, it gives the players a lift and say, I've got to perform for this fella. And after a few games, they go back to what they were. That's how it runs usually, doesn't it? But I'm impressed that the commitment that the team has shown, it's carried on and on and on for 6 or 7 weeks now, even though we've had disappointments when Arsenal nicked the goal like they did, and we had a real good performance at Liverpool and lost 2-1. So you say it's really, really improving, and let's just hope that that attitude, regardless of results, carries on.
That's very well summed up, both of you. Can I just rewind it 2 minutes, Mutchy? What was the double reference with Gary Bellamy?
Oh, what it was is when we had to negotiate what the bonuses were, right? The gaffer, which was Graham Turner, chooses Gary Bellamy to go and do the talking for us. And we're all going, really? So when he came back out of the office, he says, well, what about the league games then? What are we getting for that? He went, well, what did you ask for? He went, double. I went, all right. I said, what about the FA Cup? He went, double. I went, right. I said, what about the League Cup? He went, double. And we all burst out laughing because the chance of us getting double was nil. And I thought, well, he got the right person in, didn't he? We ended up on the same that we were in the first place.
Mutchy, double nothing's nothing, isn't it?
You've got it. Double. Gary Bellamy.
That's brilliant, Mutchy. What a nice way to end off the podcast. So never send Gary Bellamy in if you're looking for bonuses. Thanks very much, guys, for that. The first one of the new year. We've got big plans for the podcast in 2026. We'll be doing these a lot more regularly than we have so far. We'll also be putting extra content on Patreon as well. But of course, you can still get the podcast from the usual places. But hopefully, we'll be able to develop it a little bit further as well and get some more stories out there for everyone. But for now, for our first podcast of 2026, that's easy for me to say. It's goodbye, and thanks very much, fellas.
Thanks, Johnny. Cheers, Robbie.
Thank you. See you, Mutchy.
Cheers, boy.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.